So we're going to go in this building. This part of the building, this annex, was actually built as the Judiciary Annex. So the Supreme Court was originally in the main building. In 1900, the Judiciary Annex was built. It fell into disrepair. The Supreme Court moved into the Rhodes Tower when that was completed and outgrew that space and then moved to the riverfront. So it's their fourth home. There was a move to get rid of this building. It was vacant for many years, to demolish it. It's now where the Senate members have their offices. The members of the House are across the street. They go through a tunnel through the parking garage across the street to the high rise where I said there was, there were theaters and art gallery. So this was part of the restoration of the building. And what happened was this restoration took place in phases. The first phase was to complete this building, to get senators out of the building in here, to get the House members out of the building into the building across the street. They closed down the Statehouse, the main part of the Statehouse, for several years, and the House members met in what became the Supreme Court room in the building we were just in. So it took a lot of moving to keep government, and we have a full-time legislature. It's not like they meet for 12 weeks a year, although they do take a lot of breaks, but it does go year-round. We are actually located in a space. This was the Judiciary Annex, and that's the foundation that we just walked through. That's the Statehouse and the foundation. This is a newly created space with an atrium above as part of the restoration. One of the things to notice when you're here is this building was built starting in the 1830s. It is built the way buildings were built for millennia, which is you just pile stones on top of each other and it's all load bearing. And they're vaulted spaces because vaulted spaces are structurally a very sound way to create big open spaces. If you've ever been to the Pantheon in Rome or places, you can do that. One of the challenges and this was basically basement space hung with all kinds, it had a garage in it, it had all the ductwork. Yeah, wash state cars. If the President of the United States came to visit Ohio at that time, they would have come into this garage space. Now they actually have a secure entrance beneath this, so anybody can come in securely and come up through the building. But one of the challenges during the restoration was, what do you do? Where do you hide utilities in a solidly stone building? And the architecture team was brilliant because they used found spaces. And when you get upstairs, we'll show you how it was designed. But this is one of, I think, the most wonderful buildings in Ohio because of its age, the design, how intact it is, and the fact that it's a public building. This building, although it looks very compatible from the exterior, it happened to be built during a time when they actually made neoclassical architecture. It's built of the same stone from the same quarry. The difference is that's a steel frame building with stone added to it. So when we walk into that space, that's going to be under the rotunda. When we walk through those walls, those were the load-bearing walls. And you'll notice these upside-down arches. When we get up to the atrium, you'll see that's where the stone columns are. Those are relieving arches that are spreading the load of that column so it doesn't bear on one point. Arches are such stable structural units. So uncovering a lot of that.
When the building opened in the late 1850s, it had central heat, steam heat.
Oh, yeah.
They were delighted that in January the building was at 60 degrees, so it was pleased as much. In addition, it had flush toilets from the very beginning, niches in the stone around the roof.
They collected water in tanks from the roof.
There were tanks, and there one's still in place over the east and west porches.
Yeah, we'll go out there.
Riveted iron tanks. There was steam heat to keep them from freezing, and water came off the roof when it rained, filled these, and then there was an overflow when they were full. And they had flushing toilets the whole time they were using the building.
The other thing is this is new space because of so many visitors coming, particularly school groups. And one of the architects had the idea to do this map, and we're like, Really? With all those different colors of marble? Well, we have been in here so many times when a whole bus of kids is trying to stand on the one county that they come from. But so it has the shop, but this level is really the visitor center. And then they take people on tours from here. But sometimes they just come in to learn how government works. And if you come in, there are galleries where you can sit and watch the House and Senate in session. So it is a public building. It's open and people should take advantage of it. And a lot of groups do. But I think a whole lot of the general public just doesn't realize these are public buildings where you can actually watch government in action. So those walls held up the portico. These are the walls of the building. And what they found was the space in between was where they could run a lot of systems and not, because you just can't be going through these walls constantly trying to put modern systems in. It was a parking garage for like dignitaries. It was a lot of systems. I mean, there were all kinds of heating, and they had a little cafeteria down here. And they still have the cafeteria, but I think it's closed right now. This space just gives you an idea of the power of this type of architecture when you realize these vaults are basically holding up the entire building. And it was such a surprise because there was so much stuff infilled here. I remember coming through after they cleared everything out. There was literally a dirt floor. It had been used as stables too at one point. And it almost felt like you were in a catacomb or something. You had no idea you were in this building because it was just so raw and nobody had seen it that way for so long. The building was designed to have 4 light wells so that all the rooms in this building had natural light, which of course in the 1830s, you had to have natural light. Later, gas light was added, and then of course they added electricity. So it went through all these iterations. One of the things that worked so well with those light wells, it became vertical transportation. So where do you put an elevator in a building built like this? Thank God there were light wells. So we're gonna go and take one of those elevators so you can just kind of see how that works. This stone actually comes from the state hospital that was on the hilltop. It was called the Hospital for the Insane. It had a lovely, that's what it was.
When that was a clinical term.
Yeah, so it was torn down. And oh, okay, the elevator's closed. We're gonna walk. Well, you can see the elevator. It looks like they're working on it. This building is built of Columbus limestone, and it was actually quarried. If you're from Columbus, it's under where Interstate 70 is on the west side, near where the state hospital was located. And if you look at it, it's highly fossilized. It's not like real smooth-grained Indiana limestone. You can see fossils all over this. These are the original exterior walls of the building. These were the light wells. They were open to the sky, and they provided light to all of the offices. When the restoration started, there were about 6 levels of infill here, so nobody actually knew what the space looked like. But it was open space, that elevators, and these, of course, are fire rated because it's all stone. And these, I don't think you can see. At any rate, there are little corners that kind of pop out here with a walkway along it, and that's where the restrooms were. They were actually located outside the building because this was open to the air. Right. And it kind of looked like those balconies. They were stone and cantilevered, but you can't really see it from here. We're going to go from here into the rotunda. Sounds like an event. Oh, shoot. Oh, we won't be able to go through that. The rotunda does not have great acoustics because of its shape, but so this is the central organizing principle of the building, and then it has 2 wings with 4 light wells, and the House chambers are a 2-story space on this side. The Senate chambers 2 stories. Originally, the Supreme Court had 2 stories, and the State Library. So there were 4 2-story spaces. All of them, the ones on this side of the building had been subdivided. Those stayed that way. But the House and Senate chambers have been restored to what they would have looked like at the time the building was completed. There were historic photos to help with, these are reproduction light fixtures. They look like gas fixtures that were in the building. You see the little cock at the bottom, which was how you turned the gas on. The skylight was gone, but there was a description in an 1870 newspaper describing the rays and everything with the little seal in the middle, but the framework was all there that matched it exactly. And when you look at history, if you look at that state seal, it has a canal boat in it. And canals were only in use for a very short time, so that was like that snapshot in time of when that was the state seal. I wanted to point out some of the artwork because it's original to this space. One is the Vicksburg Monument. It actually had been disassembled and was spread around the building. This is where it was originally. So the Lincoln had been taken off. The Vicksburg was actually sliced and parts of it were in the building. That was restored, and it was another one of those ones where people of Ohio raised the money, right? And this was during the Civil War and the Battle of Vicksburg. This is Perry's Victory. And believe it or not, it was designed for that space. It doesn't fit it, but it was designed for it. And then there are also large paintings, where, again, history of Ohio. And these were put in over time. To restore those, they were too big to get out of the building. So during the restoration, they actually built a room in the center of the floor and put the artwork in it and restored it in that space, because there was no way to have it here when all this construction was going on. And then they were rehung. But this is a really, it's a beautiful space. If you look at the floor, every single row is a different size. You could do it with a computer today, but they did not do it with a computer. And it's beautiful when you see it from above. But the original governor's office, there's still a ceremonial governor's office there. So for official duties or guests or whatever, he uses that office. He's actually over across the street. And I mentioned that the senators are in that building, and there's an atrium between them, and it looks like they're having an event today. That was open space. And this is not good for events because the acoustics are terrible in here. So that space was created from no space, but it used to be because people would run back and forth between the Statehouse and the Judiciary Annex, and it was always known as Pigeon Alley because pigeons would just roost there. And the Ohio Historical Society, there's actually a stuffed pigeon above that door that's there, and people who've been around the Statehouse know what that is. What we're going to do is just go back down over, and we'll take you up into that space, the main lobby staircase area of that building, just to show you some of the Ohio history that's incorporated into light fixtures and doorknobs, and another one of those very detailed buildings. This is the part of the building that was scheduled for demolition for probably 15 years. And other than cleaning it up, it's all original material. So this was completed in 1902, I believe. And one of the things that's interesting about it is how the state seal's incorporated, and all of the doorknobs have the state seal on it. So I don't know what that allegory is up there. Even when we were researching the building, we have no idea. It was a Cincinnati artist. The skylight is original. It was covered over with plywood. Nobody knew it was up there. So, oh, yeah, yes, actually. So you'll notice this design throughout the building. And there was a library that the whole thing looked like this Greek key, but it also could look like a Nazi symbol. So when they uncovered it and was like, how do we go to the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate? One of the things we had to do was research how it was used in different cultures. And really, until the Nazis, there were cultures all over the world that used this same design that meant different things. And once actually the politicians, because you never know, they could just decide to take everything up. Once they looked at it and they said, okay, well, it's historical. It's, that doesn't mean we're Nazis. But there are things like that happen where context and something that has a meaning at one time has a meaning at another. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with. But if politicians could accept reality and truth and just say, okay, fine, nobody's ever said anything about it, but it was a cause of great concern. It's used throughout the building, as you can see. Everything here was researched, so all the decorative painting was under layers of paint. The light fixtures were all here. All the marble was darker than this. It was a dark brown because people smoked in the building. They used coal heating in the building. And it was amazing. They just put some different cleaning materials on, and all of a sudden it was like it's white marble. Who would have guessed? So this is a building that we're proud of because it was done so carefully, and it will be maintained this way forever. It's 25 years after the restoration, and nothing has been undone. Oh, interesting story. It was a competition. There was a first, second, and third place. The first place was Thomas Cole, who's the Hudson River Valley painter, who's from Ohio. Parts of the design were his. So there was never, what they did was they took all the designs and kind of redid them. And then during the years, there were, 7 different architects that worked on it because they'd have money to do something, and then they didn't. So there was never a complete set of drawings for this building. At best, what we found were bits and pieces or a room detailed or furniture detailed. The Judiciary Annex was the complete opposite, a complete set of drawings down to the furniture, because the Supreme Court justices had offices, down to the furniture in their offices, including a fainting couch with fringe. Go figure.
And we should point out, too, that the barrel, the rotunda, above the rotunda, never had a dome because it never was intended to have one. The design was before the era of the dome.
Yeah. So people always thought, it was just they ran out of money and it should have a dome, but it was designed. Yeah.
People are just standing around.
Yeah, kind of. Well, if you want to go, just take a look. That's all new, and the stone in there was actually quarried here in Columbus. So it's Columbus limestone for all the new parts. So this is all new, the 2 ends, and it's the same limestone. And you can see down below where those arches were, they were holding up these giant columns.
That's right.
But they needed a gathering event space, and the ceiling's all acoustical tiles, so it has better. Oh, the other thing they did, this is a National Historic Landmark, and there were a lot of people who thought, in fact, it was quite controversial to enclose this space. So the architects designed it. It's freestanding. The only place it touches the building is that glass. So everything here bears on what's below. And they said if anybody decided later to take it out, the only thing they would do is they turn 4 windows into doors.
So to either side, the vertical walls, you see the columns, those are all original
Yeah.
when the buildings were built.
These are the original exterior.
It's not that the city had picked the same limestone to do the stone structure of this atrium. which is self-supporting.
Yeah. And the architects were so intentional about hiding all the systems. So you see this design, that's actually the heating cooling system. It's all integrated into details as opposed to seeing anything. The technology, you don't see any of it. It's all hidden in the building. And the idea was that you could walk in and feel like it was a historic building that was being restored and not have a lot of stuff added, as it did over years and as you frequently see it being done.